Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Good morning, devotees. My name is Manjari, Gopika, Devi, Dasi, and today we will be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Verse 15. This title is entitled The Prayers of Queen Kunti. Before we begin, I ask for your blessings, please, that I may speak something pleasing to my spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of the devotees. Let us together chant the invocation prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarvasvatim vyasyam tatto jayamudirayet nasha prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshirun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So again, it's so nice we have this on the board now, but for anyone listening online, again, the verse today is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, verse 15. Yadyapi asram brahma shiras Tvamogam cha pratikriyam Vaishnavam teja asadya Samashyam yad brig. Thank you. Samsham yad briguduvaha. Anyone else like to chant? Yad yad vipram brahma shiras Tvamogam cha pratikriyam Vaishnavam teja asadya Samasham yad brigadvaha. Yadyapasham brahma shiras Tvamogam cha pratikriyam Vaishnavam teja asadya Samyad brigudvaha. Yadyapyasram mashiras Tvamogam cha pratikriyam Vaishnavam teja asadya Samashamyad brigudvaha. Anyone else? Okay. Is this microphone? It's kind of working, right? Okay. Okay. We'll do the word-for-word translation. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do, Mother Kunti. Okay. Yadyapi, although. Ashram, weapon. Brahmashira, supreme. 2. But. Amogam, without check. Cha, and. Apratikriyam, not to be counteracted. Vaishnavam, in relation with Vishnu. Teja, strength. Asadya, being confronted with. Samashamyat, was neutralized. Brigu Udava, O glory of the family of Brigu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Shanaka, glory of Brigu's family, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashvatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of Vishnu, Lord Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Brahma Jyoti, or the glowing transcendental effulgence, is resting on Lord Sri Krishna. In other words, the glowing effulgence known as Brahma Tejas is nothing but the rays of the Lord, just as the sun rays are rays of the sun disk. So this Brahma weapon also, although materially irresistible, could not surpass the strength of the Lord. The weapon called Brahmastra, released by Ashvatthama, was neutralized and foiled by Lord Sri Krishna by his own energy. That is to say, he did not wait for any other's help because he is absolute. This is a very interesting purport. It's a short purport, but it's so much is there. It's very interesting, and it's an interesting pastime. That we begin just by elaborating on the Brahmajyoti that Prabhupada mentions in the purport. So in the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, which Prabhupada is also referencing in the purport, the Lord explains that his personal rays, the Brahmajyotir, the dazzling effulgence of his personal form, he explains in this way. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyasya cha shasvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ikantikasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the three aspects of the same absolute truth. Brahman is the aspect most easily perceived by the beginner. Paramatma, the super soul, is realized by those who have further progressed, and Bhagavan realization is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.7, where Lord Krishna says that he's the ultimate concept of the absolute truth. Mata parataram nanyat. Everything rests upon me. And later in Bhagavad Gita 10.42, Krishna further explains, Atava bahunaitena kim yatena tavarjuna vistabhyahamidam krityam ekam shena stito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So thus by his one plenary expansion, through the Paramatma, the Lord maintains the complete material cosmic creation. And the system of God realization is a science in the Vedas. The Sankhya yogis only analyze and meditate on the 24 factors of material creation because they are materialistic. So they have very little information on the Purusha, the Lord, the personality of the Lord. And then the impersonal transcendentalists are bewildered, Prabhupada says, in Sri Shupanapad Mantra 15. Prabhupada explains the impersonal transcendentalists are simply bewildered by this glaring effulgence of the Brahmajyotir. So it's really through devotional service that covering is removed so one can perceive the real face of the personality of Godhead. The Brahmajyotir, explained as Krishna's effulgence, is noted, as we mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 14.27, but also in the Brahma Samhita in 5.40. It says, Yasya prava pravavato jagananda koti koti shashesha vasudari vibhuti binam tad brahma nishkalam anantam ashesha bhutam govinda mari purusham tamaham bhajami. In the millions and millions of universes there are innumerable planets, and each and every one of them is different from the others by its cosmic constitution. All of these planets are situated in a corner of the Brahmajyotir. This Brahmajyotir is but the personal rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom I worship. So returning to today's verse, Krishna is on the battlefield once again with Arjuna, and Ashvatthama, just through the Brahmastra weapon, which we know and in previous verses is explained as an atomic weapon, but more powerful because it comes from Krishna's Brahmajyotir, and it is a moga, it cannot be checked. And with the Brahmastra weapon, With the atomic bomb, you drop it, I don't know, well, we could use the example of World War II, right? It was dropped over Hiroshima, and it decimated everything around within a certain number of miles. But the Brahmastra weapon goes after just who it is. You can send it after a specific target. So how did Ashwatthama get the Brahmastra weapon? Yes, his father Dronacharya. He got the Brahmastra weapon from his father Dronacharya. There is a saying, deserve and desire. Does anyone know that phrase? Deserve and desire. It expresses... Yeah. Thank you. First, deserve and desire. I'm so glad Mother Kunti is here. First, deserve and desire. And that means that it expresses the idea that one should achieve and receive both what they deserve and they desire. But Ashwatthama desired without deserving. And Ashwatthama insisted on getting the Brahmastra weapon from his father. And his father, Dronacharya, knew that Ashwatthama was not qualified to have this weapon, but somehow, out of fatherly affection, or maybe he just got worn down by his whining, Ashwatthama, he gave it. He gave in. So who is qualified to possess the Brahmastra weapon? One who can control their mind and senses. Arjuna, on the battlefield, Arjuna had control over his senses. He was a real Kshatriya. A real Kshatriya's duty is to live their life exclusively for the welfare of human society. After the 5 Pandavas married Draupadi, Narada Muni visited them and gave them some advice. I'm sure many newlyweds can relate to this. That the day you get married, everybody has a lot of advice for you because they want to see you be successful and happy and stay together forever. So Narada Muni visited the Pandavas and he gave them some advice on this rather unusual arrangement. So Narada Muni said that the 5 Pandava brothers should have an agreement as to how they should each spend time with their wife Draupadi. So the Pandava brothers, they got together and they made a rule that they would spend time with Draupadi in turns, one-on-one. And no other brother would interfere during that stipulated time. And if anyone did so, that rule breaker would have to enter into exile for 1 year. But one day, a Brahmin came to see the Pandavas, and he was very, very upset. He was lamenting that robbers had stolen his cows. He was so upset. I mean, naturally. And Arjuna wanted to help him, naturally, because he's a Kshatriya. Literally, his job is to protect Brahmins and cows. And here is this Brahmin needing help with both of these things. But there was one problem. Arjuna's bow, Gandiva, was in a room that was occupied by Yudhisthira and Draupadi. Arjuna knew the consequence of entering that room would be exile for 1 year. But he was willing to sacrifice his sense gratification of comfort to fulfill his duty of protecting the Brahmana and cow. So Arjuna went in, he got his bow, rode off into the sunset, and he saved the cows and he saved the Brahmin, and everyone was very happy. And then when he returned back home, back to where his brothers and his wife were, he excused himself. He said he would be leaving now for 1 year. And Yudhisthira tried to persuade him not to go. He said, this is really unnecessary. You had a very good reason for coming in. We're okay with it. But Arjuna said no. He wanted to uphold the established rules. So he went into exile. And during that 1 year of exile, he visited Lord Indra in the heavens, and Indra greeted him because Arjuna is Lord Indra's son. And so Indra invited him in wanted him to feel very happy and special there. And Indra asked Arjuna to be in the court to watch the dance of the heavenly damsel Urvashi. And during the dance, this beautiful Urvashi became attracted to Arjuna. I mean, who wouldn't? But she was very attracted to him. She kept staring at him. And Lord Indra noticed this. So afterward, after the dance, he told Urvashi, why don't you go spend some time with Arjuna? She was happy to do so. So she did. She went over to Arjuna and she, as we would say, flirted and then propositioned him. Arjuna refused because he said, "You're like my mother." And one of the kings in his dynasty had been married to Urvashi for some time. Srila Prabhupada said that the Miss Universe of this planet is like a horse compared to the heavenly damsels. And Urvashi was especially gorgeous. She was like the Miss Universe of the heavenly planets. So here is the Miss Universe of the heavens. And by the way, the heavenly beings, they don't even, not only are they gorgeous to look at, but they don't even sweat, like they don't smell. So she's just absolutely mind-blowingly stunning, propositioning Arjuna. And Arjuna had the full opportunity and the full sanction of his father to enjoy sensual pleasures with her. And his response was, "No, you're like my mother." And how often do we make excuses for ourselves to enjoy our senses? Oftentimes we take a vow as the new year, I'm not going to eat as much sugar. But then, God, it's been such a bad day, and this person, they made these brownies, and maybe just one bite. We make all the excuses to enjoy. But Arjuna was so much in control. Another name of Arjuna is Gudikesh, one who has conquered sleep. Because while others in his Gurukul would be sleeping, he would be up at night practicing, perfecting. I mean, he's known as a supreme archer. He didn't just wake up and become the supreme archer. In fact, he slept very little so that he could practice and perfect and really understand the concepts of warfare. Sleep, that is another part of the senses we have great difficulty controlling. How many times do you hit the snooze button in the morning? I have to set multiple alarms. I have the gentle wake up alarm, and then I have the, come on, you can do it alarm, and then I have the, really, it's serious now, get out of bed alarm. I have a system. The first system, the first alarm, it's just like a wake up, and then I really need to think about it. But anyway, Gudikesh, one who has conquered sleep. I mean, Arjuna is none other than Nara, from the Narayan sages. So Arjuna, on this battlefield, is the perfect foil to Ashwatthama, who had no control over his senses, and who was associating with crooked people. So giving Ashwatthama the Brahmastra was like giving an AK-47 to a monkey. Ashwatthama was envious of Arjuna since the Gurukul days. Has anyone here experienced envy? Envy is a resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. We don't want to admit it because it's such an ugly trait, but it's present in us. And it's even present in devotees towards other devotees. It's something we really, really have to be aware of and work on. I've had to work on, for sure. And envy is very dangerous. In Othello, Shakespeare wrote this famous line. He called envy the green-eyed monster. Because envy, like a monster, can grow, devour and distort, mocking the very person it affects. Sometimes within the Varnashram system, people think, I'm born a Brahmin, I'm born a Kshatriya, but Krishna refutes this in Bhagavad Gita when he says that Varna Ashram is based on qualities. Srila Prabhupada explains that just because someone is a son or a daughter of a doctor, it doesn't mean they are a doctor. They didn't go to medical school. They didn't have residency. They haven't seen any patients. So this is the mistake that Ashwatthama made. Ashwatthama was envious of Arjuna since the Gurukul days, because Ashwatthama thought that since he was the son of the great Dronacharya, he should have all the weapons. And Ashwatthama noticed that Arjuna got a lot of mercy from his father because of Arjuna's good qualities. The relationship between Ashwatthama and his dad became strained. And Ashwatthama instead began associating with crooked people, and he became close to Duryodhana. When Duryodhana was dying on the battlefield, Ashwatthama took a vow to his bestie. He said, I will bring you the heads of the Pandavas in the dead of night. By the way, this is how crooked he was. We've come so far in Kali Yuga away from, we have like no laws of warfare now. But back then, it was super shocking that Ashwatthama would break this rule. There were rules of not harming women and children in warfare. You don't fight at night. You don't fight against someone who doesn't have a weapon. But Ashwatthama took this vow, I'm going to bring you the heads of the Pandavas, and like a coward, he waited until it was nighttime, and he went to where they were sleeping, and he chopped their heads off. Oh wait, he thought he chopped their heads off. Actually, he chopped the heads off of the Pandavas' children, their sons. Well, he knew. He chopped off their kids' heads. And he went back to Duryodhana, and he told him this. When Duryodhana heard this, what do you think his reaction was? Mm. Mm. Thank you. Mother Kunti just said that Ashwatthama brought the heads to Duryodhana, and at first he was happy because he thought that these 5 heads were that of the Pandavas, but then he squeezed the heads and he realized these were children's heads, not the 5 Pandava brothers, and he cried. He said, you killed children. So as crooked as Duryodhana also was, he was incensed by this heinous act. After this, when Ashwatthama saw that Duryodhana was not happy with him, he realized he's in trouble now from both sides. Duryodhana, not on board, not supportive of him anymore. He's washed his hands of this, and now he's got the 5 Pandava brothers coming after him to avenge the murders of their children. So, he invoked the Brahmastra. But when Krishna and Arjuna chased after him, Krishna told Arjuna to retract the Brahmastra. And here again, only a qualified person can retract it. Krishna himself, the Supreme Lord, could have done it, but he wanted to bring the glories of Arjuna to everyone. I could give a whole separate class just expressing my appreciation for the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. It is so beautiful how many times over and over and over Krishna wants to bring glory to Arjuna. So here, the Supreme Lord, again, in the beginning of class, the Brahmastra, it comes from his energy, but he says, Arjuna, retract it. But then when Ashwatthama shot the weapon for a second time, directed at Arjuna's grandson, Parikshit Maharaj, who was in the womb of Uttara, there was no time for instructing Arjuna to counteract the weapon. Krishna immediately rushed into the womb. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, verses 7 through 11, the details are given that Maharaj Parikshit had darshan of Krishna. And it's so beautiful, these verses. It describes how Krishna was thumb-sized. You can hold up your thumb. Krishna became thumb-sized. And he was wearing a beautiful crown, wielding the club to counteract the power of the Brahmastra weapon. Whenever there is a match of power against power, Krishna wins because he is the source of all power. He is the master of all mystics. In military science, there's always a counter weapon. There's the broadsword. If someone brings out the broadsword, then you bring out this sword. But then if you're doing up-close personal combat, you drop the sword and you get a dagger. And if that person gets a dagger, then, you get this other thing. And you have the bow and arrow. But then if you're what counteracts that is the crossbow, because you can shoot faster. So in military science, there's always a counter weapon to a weapon that someone presents. It's just like in martial arts, if someone makes a move, you make the counter move to check that move. It's a test of skill, move and counter move. Fencing is an Olympic sport because it is such a skill to check the move of your opponent. So with these celestial weapons, though, there is one weapon that has no counter, amoga. That is the Sanskrit in this verse. It means it cannot be checked. Amoga cannot be checked. Yet it was checked because Krishna supersedes even his own laws. He makes his laws and sometimes breaks them. In Western religious philosophy, there is a paradox called the omnipotence paradox. In philosophy, a paradox refers to a statement or a situation that appears to be contradictory, but it may in fact contain a hidden truth or logic. So the omnipotence paradoxical question in Western religious philosophy is this: if God can do anything, can God make a stone so heavy that he can't lift it? Well, if you say, yes, God can make a stone so heavy that he can't lift it, well, then you're limiting God, because you're saying there's something he can't do. He can't lift a stone. But if you say, no, God can't make a stone so heavy that he can't lift it, then you're also limiting God, because you're... So it's what is the truth here? Krishna shows us that the answer is yes. He can make a stone so heavy that he can't lift it, and then he will lift it. He can create a weapon so powerful it cannot be countered, and then he will counteract it. The creating of something is by a part of his potency, but his potency is unlimited, and his unlimited potency can counteract that which is created. And so for a devotee, being in the shelter of Krishna's internal potency is a state of fearlessness. And we can see that in Arjuna. Because whatever kind of exists out there is in the inferior potency, but the devotee is in the shelter of the superior potency. So there's nothing to be feared except for forgetting Krishna. By constant remembrance of Krishna, Krishna admits one into the spiritual realm, and the gateway is through the Mahamantra. That is how we get personal with Krishna, because he is personally present in that name. Krishna is the source of Brahman. Brahmastra is just a tiny speck of his power. And in our sadhaka life, Maya has so many Brahmastra-like weapons firing at us, like lust, anger, envy, greed. It's practically impossible to counteract them. The only way we can is by surrendering to the Lord and asking for help. It's really one step at a time that Maya takes us down. It's just a little bit of deviation. A little bit of deviation. Today I chant one less round because I'm busy, but that only happens like once a month, and then maybe it comes twice a month, and then maybe it becomes once a week, and then it just a little bit of deviation leads to greater and greater and greater deviation. When we think of, falling down, or we think of a big crash, but Maya is patient. It's a slow burn. I was thinking, I have not personally experienced addiction, but I have known people in my life who have suffered from addiction to drugs and alcohol. And addiction is an insidious disease. When people realize they have a problem, though, they go to treatment and they are taught the 12 steps of recovery. One is admit that you're powerless over alcohol and your life has become unmanageable. 2 is believe that a higher power can restore you to sanity. 3, make a decision to turn your life over to God. 4, make a moral inventory of yourself. 5, admit to God, self, others the wrongs you have made. And then the other steps are making amends, doing acts of service. There's a saying among recovered addicts who follow the 12 steps, and the saying is, the system works if you work it. Which means that the principles and the steps in the 12-step program are effective, but their success relies on the individual's commitment to engaging with and applying in their daily life. Recovery is a participatory process of attending meetings, working the steps, seeking support, and that is how you maintain sobriety. So the system is, after one leaves a treatment facility, they're supposed to go to AA meetings daily or several times a week. You're matched with a sponsor that you work one-on-one with, who can help you change your lifestyle. People stop going to social events that include alcohol. In many cases, they end relationships with people. Some people even move to a whole new city to get away from these triggers. And my personal observation is the people who end up relapsing are not the people one would expect. In my experience, the people who I have seen relapse were not people who were resistant to treatment. They're people who feel so good in their sober bodies, who after participating in AA for a certain amount of time feel in charge of their lives again and say, I will never use again. I'm a different person now. That's all behind me. And they believe that they are cured of the disease of addiction, and so they stop going to meetings. And their relationship with their sponsor peters out. And because they feel so in control and change, they let their guard down and hang out with people who drink sometimes and maybe go to the social events where there is drinking. They don't drink, but they're around it. And slowly, they no longer have relationships with other people whose priority is sobriety. And then over a course of time, all it takes is eventually one bad day, and it's all of a sudden so easy to reach for the drink again. The people I've seen relapse do not come out of rehab and ask Uber to take them to a bar. They're the people who stopped working the system, that slowly let their guard down without realizing that that's what they were doing, until there were no barriers left between them and that trigger. And in a way, we're all addicts. I don't want to trivialize the term addict because, again, addiction is a very serious, very heartbreaking disease. But all of us here are really stuck on material enjoyment. I know I am. We're sense gratifiers, not so anonymous. But I was thinking, we have the regulative principles. And guess what? The system works if you work it. Srila Prabhupada promised us, I've read so many times in his lectures, in his letters, that if you strictly follow the 4 regulative principles and chant at least 16 rounds daily, it is without doubt at the end of this lifetime you can go back home, back to Godhead. He wrote that without doubt in this lifetime. And Prabhupada, he gave us other guidance too beyond the principles of, he said that we should be reading or hearing, if you're like me and you like to listen as you're driving or something, but really reading or hearing 1 to 2 hours a day of the books, going to the temple regularly. So it's a new year. And thinking of the Brahmastra and all this, it's a good time to think, have I let my guard down? Where am I getting a little bit lax? I'm reflecting on that. Many of us took initiation here, and we took our vows in front of our spiritual master, in front of the deities. Now, are we going to follow the example of Arjuna, who really had so many opportunities to, kind of get away from the right thing to do? Are we going to make excuses to ourselves and bend our principles a little bit here or there? But then where do we end up? And I'm reflecting on my own chanting lately. I'm like, man, I don't think my japa chanting has gotten any better. I think it's actually gotten worse since I took initiation. And what am I going to do about that? I'm getting my rounds done, but am I really chanting? Am I really following that principle? Ironically, if we see someone else not following strictly, we're really quick to point it out. Maybe not out loud, right? But we're really quick to go, when someone else acts incorrectly, we're judged. But when we act incorrectly, we're lawyers, all of a sudden. We got so many reasons, so many defenses. But actually, a yogi is strict with themselves and lenient with others. So we can all pray to our spiritual masters, to Krishna, to really help us in this new year avoid the slow burn of Maya. Really take a look at what we can do, what we want to focus on to improve our commitment. And in AA, everybody gets a sponsor, and ISKCON is a society. It's wonderful. It's an international society of other people who have the same goal as you, who want to help you. So I'll end here. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions, corrections? Mother Kunti gave me plenty of corrections, and I appreciate it. It's awesome. No, I want you up here instead of me. Okay, please. Where's the...
When Dronacharya and Arjuna first saw each other on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, of course, Dronacharya was way across on the other side. So it's described by Srila Prabhupada in a lecture in New York City that he shot an arrow offering his dandavats. The arrow landed at the lotus feet of Dronacharya. And Dronacharya returned an arrow that lightly touched the head of Arjuna.
Wow.
So he was offering obeisance. My dear Gurudev, I'm so sorry. I'm here and I'm going to fight to kill you. And I'm just begging your forgiveness. And then he sent the arrow back. And Srila Prabhupada described, my dear son, be blessed. Know that you are doing God's will. Wow. So it was very nice, their exchange. I forgot my other comment. Must not have been such a big deal. Anyway, the question I've got is, you're speaking about addiction, and so really, I think it's all about relationships. Mm. And you're right. If you have a sponsor, if you have some friends that you can take aside, go to message them privately, say, hey, this is going on with me, But what do you do when you have a hard time finding someone that you can really trust and that you can... Because I know devotees, they've expressed this to me. They said, I just need to find someone I can really trust and that will actually be there for me and help me through my difficulty. So what do you do in that case?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, definitely prayer. I've definitely prayed a lot to find a good friend that I can share my heart with. And it's there's a lot of networking, I feel like, in ISKCON too. If you don't know somebody in this area, you talk to someone and say, hey, do you know anybody in Dallas? Or, and, you get introduced to people. But it does take any person, it takes time to build a relationship, right? It takes time to, but I think you have to put yourself out there, find out who you know, and ask them if they know anyone in your area or in your kind of situation. And also, it's going to events a lot, it's going to classes, it's going to kirtans, it's really trying to plug in. You gotta work it, you gotta work the system. But I do truly believe that you take one step towards Krishna and he does take 10 steps towards you. And I mean, I've seen that, sometimes people will tell stories about their relationship with Krishna and how, the stories are so magical. It's almost like something falls from the sky and it's the answer to their prayer. And that is not exactly how I have seen Krishna manifest in my life, but I have seen that Krishna has sent me the people that I really, really needed to help me move forward. So I truly believe in prayer for that. Taking shelter, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a nice class. I really appreciate the point you made about those of us that fall is not because we go straight to the bar after we have recovered, but those who are so confident that we're cruising start making those slight deviations. I can really relate to that. So thank you for that point. And just on the timeline of when Arjuna got the Brahmastra, we were just recently reading Krishna Dharma Prabhu's Mahabharata. So I thought the timeline was when he was in exile, and that time when he went to get the celestial weapons is when he got the Brahmastra, and not during that 1 year. So I was just needing some clarification on that.
Gokulananda Prabhu? The timelines are tricky for me.
The
timeline of getting the Brahmastra weapon.
Of Arjuna receiving the Brahmastra weapon.
I don't think I spoke on the timeline exactly, but I might
same
have
time,
made it confusing.
Ashwatthama saw when he was in the Gurukul, as you mentioned, he was envious of Arjuna. Oh, sorry. He was envious of Arjuna. So Arjuna received the Brahmastra first from his spiritual master or teacher. So that made him more envious, and that's how he was obstinate to get it from his father, because he thought he deserved it first.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the anecdote or story where, can Krishna make a stone which he cannot lift?
The omnipotent
So
paradox.
I think this happened in case of Srila Prabhupada. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada the same question, and he said, yes, he can, create such a stone which he himself cannot lift. And then the challenger said, then he's not all powerful. Mm-hmm. Then Srila Prabhupada said, but he will lift it again. And then he will create another stone which will be heavier than this one. Mm-hmm. And then he will lift it. And then he will create another one heavier than the one before. And he will lift it. And he said, Krishna's energy is ever expanding. This was quoted by Bhakti Vikas Swami.
Thank you. That's nice.
Hare Krishna, especially I appreciate the point like Tulsi Saki mentioned of how addiction we become confident and we don't follow the system. And I just was appreciating how, as you mentioned, as devotees, we start chanting 16 rounds, we start following principles, we start going to kirtans, we start going to class, then we start feeling so confident that we become slack in our principles. My question then is, however, at the same time we know about Nityananda's example that we have to go and give, our association to those. It's almost like we have to push the envelope to extend ourselves to give the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How do we know that I'm not going outside my protective zone, to preach? Sometimes preaching becomes an excuse to become lax in certain principles. So sometimes it seems like, I don't know, it's a kind of a confusing a little bit.
Yeah.
But
You probably know better than me, Prabhu. You've been preaching for so many years. But what I would say is when one preaches, they do so under the guidance of their spiritual master. And I would seek what my spiritual master advises me to do. Many of us are not ready to be in the association of people who challenge us in keeping our vows. And what is that one little story that I think I learned in when I was new in the movement? Just you don't make friends with a tiger, right? And I work in the world, and I don't make any secret of the fact that I'm a Hare Krishna, but I also don't sit down in the break room and say, so God is blue, and he plays a flute, So it's just, you have to be very cautious in the way that you preach and do so under the guidance of spiritual master. Gokulananda Prabhu, would you like to answer this question?
Can you repeat the question?
Prabhu,
I couldn't get the question,
Can you
sorry.
repeat the question?
And you answered it already.
Oh, did I? I don't feel like I did a very thorough job.
so she mentioned how an addict becomes lax. He relapses when he becomes overconfident and he stops following the principles of the Alcoholics Anonymous system. So I was drawing the analogy the same way with devotees. And sometimes we become lax, but then sometimes we feel the urge to spread Krishna consciousness. And, like, for example, we're told not to associate with non-devotees. But in order to spread Krishna consciousness, we sometimes have to extend ourselves. So how do we know that we're crossing the line and diluting our spiritual health, compromising our spiritual health for the sake of preaching, but at the same time continue preaching?
I know. Okay, Prabhu, you always ask questions that you have the answer to. We want to hear your answer.
No, I think you answered it very nicely. I mean, I just, the only thing I can add is that, then what do you do if your spiritual master's left the planet?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then it's very important, like you said, to have, Kunti Prabhu was saying, to have friends and to have devotee association. So
Right.
that...
I think it really comes down to being vigilant with oneself, right? Being really honest about how your devotional life is, so that when you're in the association of others that are not for preaching purposes, that you can stay strict. But I think I was just taught too, like everybody else is, we're kind. Devotees are kind-hearted and we want to love everyone, but you don't reveal your heart to someone who has, these material attachments, and who's really not ready to fully hear the message of Krishna consciousness. We extend ourselves with giving prasadam. If they're ready to chant one round, you teach them Maha Mantra. But we don't need to get so deeply involved in, going all the places that they go. And that's my answer.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there some statement where Srila Prabhupada said that there's two types of devotees? One type is pure, and they never deviate from any principle. And the other type of purity is that they are able to go out and influence others to be Krishna conscious. Have you ever heard that or read that? Two types of purity, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you all very much for listening and for tolerating me, and for helping me to understand Bhagavatam better. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.